Alright, so I'm gonna try to make a little video here. I got a bit more going on than what I'm used to. I have 4 different windows open right now that I can see. It's a little bit overwhelming. Um, I just wanted to take a minute to talk about a project that I've been working on. A couple of the other videos that I posted had to do with this C# project that I have in mind, and I'm gonna go. I'd really just make these videos for myself anyway, so I'm gonna go into a little bit of purpose stuff first. So if someone's only interested in seeing the how part of it, then you'll want to skip around to find that. Um, First of all, for me, why am I making this video? It's just a hobby. For years, my hobby has been to study Russian, and over the last several years, I've sort of become obsessed with computers. I've always grown up with them and been around them, but I was never that interested um, in trying to do anything with them. And to be honest, I'm not really sure what started all this. I actually think it was making Excel sheets at work is what really got me. I enjoyed doing that so much, and it I think is really what kind of piqued my interest in this. And I sort of somehow doing that, I was able to see some use that I hadn't, some usefulness that I hadn't seen before. Um, I'm not really sure that it would have been motivation for most people, but it's what really got me excited. And since then, I've been, just trying to learn stuff on my own, and I'm actually going to go ahead and uh, I've taken some college courses and done some classes on Udemy, and I'm about to continue to enroll in some more college courses soon here. But so that's a little bit of why. As far as background, so I'm not coming at this from a programming background, so when I try to talk about this, I'm going to try to use the right terms, but I'm sure I'm going to screw them up all the time. I don't know exactly what counts as an object and what doesn't. But I have to call the things something. I know a lot of times they're objects, so I'll probably mess up the terms a lot. Um, what? But my actual background is in electricity. That's I've spent years working with electricity, and so I've been in positions where I've been able to work with very low level slash old fashioned uh, programming stuff. So for example, um, in my mind, I guess I don't know if this is a fair way to represent the history, because like I said, I'm not really coming at it from a computer science background, but uh, with machines anyway, as far as how computers entered industry, I guess they the logic for machines was originally done by hardwired circuits, and that is sort of where I've spent the last number of years in industry, and I've had to learn quite a bit about control circuits, electricity, timers, contactors, relays, that kind of thing, and that's and then whenever I was exposed to programming, it was very what's the word? Linear programming. I think there's another word for it too. It's not object oriented, but the opposite. Procedural, I think, is the other word that's used. Procedural programming, and we had robots that we had to program that way, and so for me, like, that was very familiar. Object oriented programming is not something that I knew existed until maybe 2 years ago, and it's been kind of interesting. But at any rate, that's sort of where I'm coming at, and so like I'll stop there. That's enough about that. So as far as my current project, so I showed a video, but to be honest, the first time I made the other video, I didn't even have any audio because I didn't know how to do that yet. And the second video, I don't remember what I said or didn't say in the video. So if I didn't say it before, I'm working on this project. As I just mentioned, my hobby for years, I sort of, I don't have a family. I don't really have any plans to have a family. I I just consume my life with my interests and hobbies. That's kind of what I do. And for years, like 6 or 7 years now, my hobby has been studying Russian. I've made some decent progress on that. Not really as much as someone should have made in 6 or 7 years, but to be honest, language has never been my forte. I've worked very hard to get where I've gotten in that. When I was in school, I failed a semester of English because I'm not good at learning vocabulary, but I slept in math class and got A's on like everything. Math comes very easy for me. And science is it's also easy, not as easy as math though, and not as hard as language. Anyway, I just like languages and I like linguistics and I find it fascinating. I've tried about every study technique under the sun. And I was introduced to Anki flashcards. I hear people pronounce it Anki. I don't know which. I've always said Anki because I've always seen it written, and it wasn't until more recently that I've heard other people pronounce it in videos. But yeah, they're spaced repetition flashcards. The way I understand the research behind spaced repetition, they don't actually follow it. It becomes more of a buzzword. They're still useful, but the actual, from what I understand of, I'm not an expert on it, but I did a little research of like where the concept originally came from, and the original concept is that you learn something, then you put it away, and then when it's just before the time that you would forget it, you kind of have to. There's generalities that you can make for humans in general, but to an extent, it's a personal thing. But just, you as the learner, just before the time you would forget the thing that you just learned, just before that time, you need to review it. You don't want to be reviewing it until the moment just before you would forget it, because you're going to be wasting your time with your reviews. They'll be completely unnecessary. And if you review it after you have already forgotten it, relearning it's a little bit faster than learning it the first time, but you're going to lose a lot. It won't stick as well if you had reviewed it just before you'd forgotten it instead of just after. So that's like the root core of the concept, and the way that it works, it's I guess exponential growth. I don't know if it's exactly exponential growth, but something like that. And so, say you learn something. The first time you might need to review it is 2 minutes. The next time is maybe 20 minutes. The next time is 2 hours. The next time is 10 hours. Then a day. Then 2 days, then 5 days, then 2 weeks, then 3 months, and so on. It just kind of keeps growing exponentially is the idea behind it. And to do it properly, you would actually kind of have to self-design it quite a bit, because people's forgetting rates, in my opinion, are very person-specific, and you can't really make that in a simple, free-to-use flashcard of software. So that's not how they designed Anki. The shortest review time is a day, and that's okay, but for me that just doesn't work. Like, I find that I need to review it a lot more than that, and I can almost work better with paper flashcards, but I do really like having the electronic flashcards, because carrying around stacks, can't see my hands, stacks like this of flashcards is just really cumbersome. So it's nice to have them electronically. Anyway, that was a long enough rant. So with the stuff I've been learning from programming, I kind of got some ideas on how maybe I could at least get started on making my own. I don't know how to do all the spaced repetition stuff yet. I kind of know what I would need to look up in order to do it, but I'm not there yet. I'm just still trying to get some basic stuff first. And the previous project that I posted was me working with C# in the console to just basically create these sheets. And the what it would do is the user would choose which sheet they want to study. It would just go through the sheet in order. I had ideas for changes in the future, but currently it would just go through the sheet in order, asking questions, and then you have to type in the response exactly the way the response is supposed to be typed, because that's currently all I know how to do simply. So that's how it works. And you get a couple of attempts, and if you fail too many times, it gives you the right answer, and you have to type the right answer, because for me it helps to type it even after I see it, to really focus on it and hammer it in to my brain. And yeah, and then you just kind of work through it. If you get it right, it says, okay, good job, moves on to the next question. And I like it because I kind of know, how often I need to study, and I would rather just take control of the timing aspect of it myself instead of having my cards like locked up in this complicated, weird system. Not to knock on Anki, because I really like Anki. They're great. I just wanted to try to do something that would a little more personal for me. So I did that. I've used Unity before, and I thought, well, I could incorporate it into Unity, and I mean, eventually it could potentially turn into something nice. I don't know that I'm ever going to go that way with it, but it's a possibility with using Unity. But it's also fun because I like working with Unity, and so it's kind of fun practice for learning Unity as well. And it's fun because the looking at the console gets really tiresome. This way I can easily, make it look nice. I think maybe that can be done in the console. I don't know how to do that kind of stuff in the console. Anyway, enough ranting about that. So yeah, let's get, actually, and this is kind of funny because, so I'm working on this project. Just like a couple days ago, I found this other software study some electronic flashcards. These ones are already ready-made flashcards, which is a little nice because making your own flashcards is very time-consuming, and it has just about all of the features that I would have wanted to add if I were to make my own flashcard sets. It's Linguist, so like I'll probably be using their set honestly for the next quite a while, because there's really just about had everything that I would have wanted. So yeah, I wanted to put a little plug. I really like their software. Now about what I worked on today with my project. So first off, I tried to just sit down and convert my whole thing that I had using the console into Unity. I tried to do that already, and it just pretty much flopped. I found out that I didn't know enough about using Unity to do that, so I needed to work on some basic things first. Then once I know those things, I can convert my console project over to a Unity project, like my ideas. So first off, I had this little green box down here, and this is let's see, what do I want to say about this? Isn't the main one I wanted to talk about really, but I made this here. It's a sprite. The green box is a sprite, and Unity is kind of set up weird. So this window on the left here is Unity. The window on the right is Visual Studio. Unity uses Visual Studio. Maybe it can use some other IDEs as well, or maybe those were only older versions of Unity. I'm not sure, but mine uses Visual Studio, and so you can kind of move all the different, I guess you'd call these tabs. Like you can move all the different tabs around however you like. I saw some other guy on the internet use this layout, and I actually really like this layout. You have your hierarchy here that shows the different objects in your scene that you're looking at. So I'm looking at this scene that I labeled 001 button prints input field, and kind of if you were making a game, which is what Unity is really for, a scene would be a probably a level if it were a 2D game. If it were a 3D game, it could be maybe a different room or a different entering a different area of the environment or something like that, or even maybe a different level if you have a 3D. You have levels in your 3D game. And then yeah, so but for mine, my scenes are basically like windows, like new windows, basically like a web browser. So it'll take you from one window to another window as you click on these buttons. That's my eventually my goal. So that when I say, hey, I want to study, these questions, maybe a new scene will either be, I don't know, maybe I'll have a new scene. Basically one scene will be like one flashcard, and that'll be the place for you to type in the answer and check the response, that type of thing. Or maybe that'll be too cumbersome and I'll want to put a couple of questions on a scene. Whatever the case, I'll have to find out when I get there. For now, I worked on this first scene right here, just It has a place for the user to input some text and a button, and then when that button is clicked, it is supposed to just move the text that the user will copy the text that the user typed in to this little blank area down here. And that's all it's supposed to do right now. I think that knowing how to do these things will help me when I want to check the answer. So eventually that'll become the methods that I use to do this will be used when I want to click a button and check whether my answer was correct or not. So a little more about this hierarchy. So this is the scene. I labeled the scene. I created this. So these are objects, which is a little weird to me. Like I said, object-oriented programming is not my background. I'm pretty new to it, and the concept is still a little weird to me. But then it's really weird when I'm approaching it from Unity, because so usually, like, yeah, I guess just the whole concept of an object is still a little confusing to me. But at any rate, these are objects, and sometimes, so like this is an empty object. I created this and it's really not working. It's not doing any more than just organizing things so that I can basically have a little drop down here, this game object called game handler. And when you look at the object over here in the inspector tells you all the details about the object that you're clicked on. You have the name, a bunch of stuff that I more or less don't fully know about yet. Tags I think you can reference later in code if you want to tag stuff, and then you can call things by tags, I think, or reference them by tags or whatever. Yeah. Anyway, then you can have components. I think this is a component right here, the transform. I think that K counts as a component. And so this is just its position in space. So Unity has 3D space to it, and I'm using Unity 2D, but technically it is still in 3D space, so you have to kind of, move stuff around accordingly. And so like here's a little button here that says 2D. If I click it, it'll switch it to 3D. And I can see where my camera is. There's my camera looking at my screen, but I really am only concerned with the 2D world, so everything that I do ends up on this 2D plane. And then there's something else that took me a little while to figure out. So this little green square, I conveniently made the green square the exact size as the camera view. So when you look down here in the game view, which is what the person would see when they're playing the game, you'll see the green square, but you see these things over top of the green square, and you don't see those in my picture up here, which represents like the design view. But what's interesting, and I'm not really sure of the reason for this because like I said, I'm new, but when you zoom out really far, you can see that they do exist. So it's because these are UI elements, user interface elements, and so you can kind of read that. It's really hard to see. It says output text, just like it says down here. Very hard to see right here. It says this text type above, hit button, view below. That's written right here. You can see the input field box. You can see my button. Those are all UI elements. And I guess I'm assuming that they pop up like this because those are, as the background behind it changes, these are not meant to change, I don't believe. Like, I don't know a lot about game development, but I'm assuming that, like, say if you're playing Halo, this would be like the stuff that represents the helmet of the player, It's always on the window. It's not dependent on the background. So for some reason, instead of having it like pinned down to the background, they have it like zoomed way out like this. At any rate, it was really confusing me for quite a while because I couldn't figure out where my stuff was going that I was putting down, and that's what's going on there. So yeah, this is an empty object just for layout purposes, and I only did this to copy some other guy in a tutorial that did it, and I'm sure as I learn more it'll make more sense as to why I put that there. And your main camera, you need your main camera because that tells what is visible. So if I were to move my camera around, which I don't want to do because I don't want to end up messing it all up, but if I were to move my camera around, I could move it behind this green tile that I laid down, and you wouldn't be able to see the green tile anymore because the camera's not looking at it. Yeah, so main camera. again, it has all these components that are, these were like pre-given to these were already pre-made. I didn't put these in here. It's kind of like a pre-given component from Unity. Background, made this one, created an empty object, labeled it background, added a sprite renderer. Then, this is kind of weird, so Unity is full of drag and drop. It's not quite the same as just writing out code. Most of the coding is actually dragging and dropping, which is a little weird to me as well, coming from console projects. But, so, there's a sprite renderer, and I added a sprite here, which I think I needed to do, and this right here, just opened up Paint. Again, I saw some guy on YouTube had I can't remember who it was, unfortunately. I watch so many tutorials when I work on these projects. So all I did was open up Paint, created just changed the size of the white blank image to 1 by 1 pixel, saved it as 1 by 1 pixel, dragged it in here, changed the pixels per unit to 1 because it wasn't default set to 1, and it really is only 1 pixel, so that's what it should be set at. Drag it into the game and then resize it, or sorry, drag it into the background. So the background is a sprite, but you drag this actual image, this, I think I saved it as a JPEG, into the sprite, whatever you'd call that piece of the component field, I think is what it would be called, sprite field. Then you can change the color just by clicking on it. Yeah, and most of the rest of the stuff, I'm beginner, I don't know what all it means. Then I had to create, these are all UI elements in here. The button, this was originally labeled as text before I renamed it, I think. Yeah, and this was labeled as input field. I didn't change the name. Those are all UI elements, and once you put one of them on there, it automatically creates a canvas. So I just kept them in the canvas. I'm assuming the canvas is this thing that I was questioning before, this really big area where the UI elements go. So the input field, pretty obvious. It allows the user to type in there. These two were, I guess, objects. These two objects were already created as part of the input field, and I really didn't have to do anything with them. Yeah, not with either one of them actually. The input field itself, I don't think I had to do anything. Nope, I didn't have to do anything with that either. Not inside the object itself. Output text, I relabeled it because it just said text, and so many things come up that say text. I wanted to make it a little more clear. I changed the text in here to be what the initial text is that shows up. I wrote that in there, and I just resized it and made it look a little prettier. Button, added this button, changed the color, change the underneath the button. You'll see there's a child, so parent child I kind of understand. So this is the child, it was labeled text, changed the name, changed the text in here which said button. I just thought O looked kind of nice, so I put an O in there. And pretty much all I had to do there too. Now to the button, let's see, I want to go over this. Okay, so kind of the weird thing is, so I have my script, right? And my button behavior script, this right here, which you can see it a little better right here. It's actually not too bad right there because it's really short. So this is a little script that I wrote for this button, and basically I just I have my two game object variables, which are actually assigned. So it's kind of weird to me. I thought this was something else that took me a while to figure out because no one explained it clearly in the videos that I was watching. Maybe I was just starting with the wrong videos, but so I don't have to declare what this is. Like, I create this variable, I call it user input, it is a game object, but then I don't have to say what game object it is. Like, I don't have to fill it with information. You'll notice nowhere down here, well, let me think if I'm, yeah, nowhere in here do I say what game object that represents. So that's done because I wrote the script, Then I attach the script to a game object. I don't know what the best method is for deciding which game object to attach it to. I've seen people attach it to their thing that they create called a handler. I've seen people attach it to the camera. I chose to attach it to the canvas because the canvas is the uppermost part that all of these things go into. It's like the connecting node for my input field, output text, button, and instructions. They all the things that I want to mess with right now, they all go to the canvas, so I figured I would attach it to the canvas. And you'll see here my script, so I just drag it over, and bam, I attach this component. The script counts as a component once I attach it. I don't know if it's a component before I attach it or not, but once I attach it, it's a component. And you'll see there's already other ones on here that say script. I didn't add those. Those are pre-made scripts that are already a part of a canvas. These were already created automatically by Unity. So this is a game object, a canvas, and it has these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different components to it. One of them is one that I added, this button behavior script, which you're looking at over here. The other 4 were automatically made by Unity as part of a canvas game object. And you'll see rectangular transform. Well, to be honest, I'm not going to know what most of these are anyway. I mean, you guess just as good as I. So, but the button behavior script, so when I write the script, because I labeled these as public, public game object user input, public game object user output, they show up in the inspector. I know there's another way to do it called serialized field. I don't really know so much which one's better. One tutorial I watched said serialized field is better. For what I'm doing right now, I can label them public because this isn't going to get that complicated at this point, and it's just for practice and study, and I'm not going to bog myself down trying to worry about which one of those I need to do at this point because I have other things that I need to learn. So yeah, so I label them public and they show up here, but originally there would be nothing here. So now there's a text object inside here, there's output text object inside here, but originally they were blank. I think it said none, like this one says none, but it's a little different looking. It doesn't have the arrows like that. It said none in there. And so what I do then is I actually, I guess, define these variables by dragging. So I have canvas, whichever text, so this is my variable named user input, and Unity nicely separates out the text. It converts this from camel case to normal case on its own, which I think is pretty slick. And yeah, so so user input would have been this text right here. So I want my input field, but I only want the text, I guess to say the text child, if that would be the right vocabulary. The text child of the input field I drag to here, and I say when I say public game object user input, I want you to be looking at this text that I just dragged into that. And the same for user output. When I say the user output variable, I want you to be looking at this right here is what, oops, this labeled output text. This is the text game object that I dragged into user output. So in my code, when I'm saying public game object user output, that is the game object that I am referring to. That's the game object that it's pulling its information from, I guess, that it's interacting with. So then I created my public void on button press. This is the method that I want to use when the button is pushed. And also, again, more attaching. Unity's all about attaching, which is weird to me coming from console projects. But well, beginner level console projects, I should say too. I don't know, maybe more advanced ones get a little bit like this, but yeah. So I have this script, this method on button press, and the place that this is used is on my button. So I go to my button. You'll see on click there was nothing in here. I had to push the plus button and I had to add first thing I have to do is add the location where I attached the script. So this script, button behavior, was attached to the canvas, so I have to add the canvas here. Then I can click on this menu, which I'll show you that, and you have all of these different I guess scripts, and I guess if I click on canvas, maybe it has all these listed as scripts on there, I'm not sure, but or components maybe. Whatever the case, this is the script that I made that I attached to the game object canvas. And when I hold my mouse over button behavior, you can see the method on button press. You see all these other ones, I don't know why they're there. I didn't make them. In fact, as I look, I don't even know that I see them there. I'm not sure about that. That's beyond my knowledge, but I do know that on button press is only showing up because I created it in my script. So that's the one that I would click on, and then it shows up here. So now on button press, that method is attached to this game object, and on click, it must already be set up by Unity. I think that was already there. So somehow the game engine is telling it that when the user clicks on the button, the thing that should happen is whatever's attached in here, and you can add more events or whatever, however you'd say that properly. You can add more things that should happen when the button is clicked. But yeah, so now back to my actual little bit of code. Most of it's like not even coding. My little bit of code, all that it happens is it takes the text from it fills this variable, this string variable that I created called text as string. It's going to fill, wait, that's not right. Yes. Yeah, it's going to fill that variable with the text that is found inside of the text. So it is the text of the text component, or maybe child. It says get component, it should be component. Text component of the user input game object. The user input game object is defined up here, which is actually defined by dragging and dropping, as I showed you before. So all that in that long, weird, roundabout way is how we get the text from this input field, whatever the user writes, into a variable. Then we take the text out of the variable and put it into this what is it, field, I guess, this field down here. So and once again, it's basically just the same. It's the text of the component text, the component that is of type text, I guess is how you'd say that. Maybe it even says. Yeah, so like I said, the vocabulary is a little hard for me, but it is the text piece, the text like as in the writing of the text as in the text like type of, or sorry, text component of the game object that I have attached as the user output through dragging and dropping. So all that long thing. So yeah, that's basically what happens. And now all that to show you, I could make this go big. I forget where's the maximize. Somewhere there's a button to maximize this. Here. No, it's probably one of these that I can't tell. Yeah, we're just gonna look at it small. So when I hit play, now it's running, and this is actually the game down here. I could make it big, as I was trying to. Maybe it's down there where I make it big. Somewhere there's a maximize on play button. I don't remember where it's at. So play. Once it's ready, thinking really hard. There's my cursor. Now I can type whatever I want here, and when I hit the button, it should move that text down to here, which it did. And if I just keep doing it, it will keep doing it. Currently, that's all it does. So it was a long explanation, but most of the same things will be for this other little project that I worked on today, so I won't have to re-say the same stuff. So when I go to my scenes, so the next 3 scenes that I made are all kind of like the same project, and here the goal was to change scenes. So when I get a little farther along in my project, I want it to pop up with a main menu that asks the user which study sheet they want to go over, and it'll be a list of options, and then the user can type in a number, push the button, and it'll go to that sheet, and then probably when they're done, I'll want it to go back to the menu or go somewhere else, not just like stop and sit there. So that's what this is about. And for this one, it helps to open up to have all 3 scenes kind of when I'm explaining, but you'll see it messes up the game view because all 3 scenes are viewable at once, so it looks kind of jumbled. But so these are the 3 scenes that I made. This is basically my main menu. Like this would be like my first study sheet and my second study sheet, or first quiz, second quiz, if you want to say that way. Same type of stuff is all over, and I attached my script. This is the script that I wrote to the game object. Once again, public text, menu text text, menu text text, and I dragged menu and instructions, this game object, or child maybe would be a better thing to say. Maybe it's also a game object. Like I said, I don't know those words very well, so I dragged this thing into here. Then user selection text, which you'll see right here, public text, user selection text, and I pulled that from option and input text right here. The text child, I think, the text child of the option input parent. Those are the right words. So I took this thing right here and I dragged it into there. So then I had to add a couple of namespaces. Well, I had to add this for the other one too, using Unity Engine.ui. That's needed for all this stuff dealing with the UI elements, which I basically already said. That's the stuff on the canvas here. That's the stuff that kind of always appears on the screen, regardless of what's happening with the background of the game. Like, but regardless of the happenings inside the game, or in this case, the happenings inside the quiz program, stuff that will always stay there. Which actually, for my purposes, most of what I'm going to be dealing with is going to be the stuff on the canvas. Yeah, so that's all. Those are all UI elements. So Unity Engine.ui. I had to have using system because I wanted to convert the number that the person enters into an int value. I think it's stored as a string by default, but I'm not really sure. It could be. I don't actually understand how the text data type works, if that's even proper to call that a data type. That's not something I'm not familiar with, but anyway, it's not stored as an integer, I'll tell you that. So I wanted to work with it as an integer just because I wanted to, so I converted it. And then using Unity Engine.scene management, this namespace is needed for the I think method. Yeah, for the, I guess should be a method for the method that I will use to change scenes. So let's see. Got my variables. I talked about those 2 already. String, menu text string. This here is just because I wanted, again, just for learning purposes, I should change this so it's easier to see. I don't remember how to. Oh, did I mess that up? Oh, huh, I didn't even know you could do that. Okay. Well, make it real big. Well, that barely helped. That color's terrible. So it just says I want the menu options to load from the script. So I wanted to for practice purposes, the menu doesn't actually appear until I hit the play button. And so this is the menu right there. Choose from the following options: new line, option 1, the first scene; new line, option 2, the second scene. That'll load once it, well, when it's told to load. That's the purpose for this variable, is to hold the menu options. So void start, this is automatically given by Unity, and this method is called at the beginning. Well, it's actually told you this comment is also from Unity. It's very convenient. So start is called before the first frame update. So this is called once at the start of the load of your scene, I guess, as opposed to the whole thing. I think at the start of just the scene itself. And so here I'm saying menu text dot text equals menu text string. That's why I had a weird name, because there's so many places where I would have just labeled something like menu text, but I don't want it to get really confusing, so that was my way of handling that. And I got this in the way. So yeah, so menu text is the menu and instructions. Now I want this back inside there, and I don't know how to get it back inside. I don't know how to do that. Oh. Anyway, so yeah. So this menu text, I took menu and instructions from right here, this game object. I dragged it here, and that's saying that menu text is coming from here. Okay, and the reason I put text at the end for myself, so it's my menu text, but it is the text. It's of type text. So for me to keep track of everything later on, I'll put the type at the end of it. I don't know what the normal procedure, better procedure is for that, but that's how I did it for now. So yeah. Then I have this other text that is my user selection, but again is the text. It's my user selection as a text type. Then my string is again menu text, but it's the string type. So that's going to matter, because I take my menu text dot text, so it's the text. Again, I don't know the proper vocabulary, but the dot text at the end is going to be like the words themselves. The text part, which this is just part of the name, but the reason I put the name there, it's actually, it would be right here. This text type, so it's the whole name. This represents this component, I guess. So it's the text component. So I'm saying I want the physical text, which actually I guess that would be this right here, of the text component, which I have labeled menu text. I want that to equal menu text string, which I wrote out up here. So it's going to rewrite this. Actually, I guess rewrite it into here. I never watched this box right here when I hit play, but I wonder if it'll even change inside this box. So yeah, so that's what the first part does. Then the rest of this is the button push. So unfortunately, I have made a mess of my nice little organized layout, and this would be easier if you only look at the one scene. So this is the main menu scene, and this button is using this method right here. I created a different method for the other buttons on the other two scenes. So this public method, because I'm going to need to use it in the inspector, I guess that's the best way to say that. I'm going to need to use it in the inspector. Void, because it's not returning a data type. On button press is what I named it. And first thing I want to do is create a variable to store the user entry. This is the little entry box. I just put an and sign on there. I just wanted to put some kind of a symbol, so I chose that one. And yeah, that'll be a place for, see, when I push play, so I can type right here. So that's a text box. And this variable, this integer variable, user selection int, is coming from user selection text, which was defined up here, once again, through dragging user selection text, dragging that, should be option, this option input text, the text, I don't know if this is a component. It doesn't seem like it's a component if it's not attached. Like, I think it's child, I guess, the text child. I don't know enough about the right terms, but take this thing and drag it in here. So now I've set that to be user selection text. Then I'm saying that I want to take the actual text, which would be right here, I guess. Should be right here. I'm curious. Yeah, it is. Huh. So you can see it change right there. So so yeah, I'm taking that text and I am converting it to an integer. And then I'm storing the value, which you saw me just type a 1 there. So let's say it was a 1. I'm storing that number 1 in this variable user selection int. Then I'm going to say if user selection int equals 1, go to scene 1. Else if user selection int equals 2, go to scene 2. Otherwise, pop up with some kind of error message saying, hey, you didn't do it right, try again. And these 3 lines are all debugged because it took me a little while to get this to work properly. So basically the console of Unity, it actually is, it's labeled console right here. I think you can even do console.writeLine, and I think that works. I'm pretty sure I've seen that in a video, but the same people that showed me how to do that in the video showed that it's better to write debug.log, whatever. So anyway, so I use debug.log, and it just wrote down here what was supposed to be happening, because with all of the attaching you have to do in Unity, there was a good chance that the logic of my code was correct, even though it wasn't working, because maybe I had not attached something properly, which actually turned out not to be the case. Initially I had something wrong, and now it was up here. I had an error up here when I was pulling I forgot the dot text at the end. So I just told it to convert dot to int32 user selection text without the dot text. So it was trying to convert the component into an integer instead of converting the text of the component into the integer, and it was just giving me nonsense. But at first I didn't know if if my code here was the problem or if it was because of me not attaching something properly, because to be honest, that's something I feel like I only really got a grasp on today. The other times I've worked with Unity, it didn't make any sense to me when you drag and drop things. So yeah, so that's why the debug.logs are here. But this is the actual workhorse, this line. So if user selection equals 1, then we're going to do this scene manager.load scene, which is the reason we have this namespace right here, scene management. And 1 is the number of the scene, and then this is just kind of, you can either do load scene mode.single or load scene mode.addition. I think addition was the other word. And doing single kind of like, I think it destroys the first scene and replaces it with the second scene. If I say addition or additive, whatever the word was, there was some form of like the word addition, it keeps both scenes together, which for some purposes could be okay, and it fixed an issue that I had originally when I was working on this. I had another issue that I was working on. It solved the one problem, but it turned this into a jumble mess because you can see all the buttons from the different scenes at the same time, which isn't what I wanted. So I kept it as single. And there's probably other stuff that can go here too, but I don't know about those other features. So load scene 1. So where does the 1 come from? And the same down here. Else if user selection int equals 2, I wanted them to load scene 2. And those come from file, build settings, scenes in build. You can add them, and I have 4 scenes in this whole little project here, but I kind of am keeping the one scene as a standalone, the first little thing, first kind of almost like the first project that I showed you. I don't want that to be part of these scenes, so I unclicked that, and I only am keeping the other 3 scenes where I have my menu and my 2 like quiz pages basically. And I put them in order, and it automatically assigns the numbers over here, 0, 1, and 2. So those are where I get the numbers from. And so that's why this is a 1 and this is a 2. And those represent, oops, where did it go? Scenes. These other scenes here. So this was a 1 and this was a 2. Yeah, that's all that this does. And once again, the dragging and dropping, we're dealing with this first scene, and the script is attached to the canvas. Again, that's where I chose to attach it. I showed you dragging in my components that I was working with, and so this part now is on the button itself. And same thing, whatever game object has my script attached to it, I need to drag that here. It's the canvas, so I drag the canvas here. Then I clicked on this list and chose the method that I'm concerned with. The method is in the class change scene button, and the method is on button press. Right here, on button press. So that attaches everything to my button so that it works. And you can see, if this is a little easier if I just start with the 1 scene. Now at least I can make it a little bigger. There's maximize on play. So when I hit play, it's gonna take a little longer. Oh, it didn't maximize. Okay, I don't know why it didn't work. So the menu here changed to choose from the following options: 1, the first scene; 2, the second scene. So if I choose 1, it'll go, and I hit my button, it'll go to the first scene, which I have this saying scene 1 so that we know. This is actually a separate script to go back, but I'll just go ahead and do it to demonstrate scene 2. If I enter a 2 here, it goes to scene 2. And again, now I'll go over this back button, which was the last thing I did today. So the back button is my 3rd script over here. Really short script. Apparently I didn't even use the AI, Unity Engine.ui. I didn't have to use that, but I put it there anyway. Just use the scene manager, Unity Engine.scene management, use that namespace. And my method that I made is called return home on click, and it's actually just this one short little line, which was the same as before, except the scene that we're going to is numbered or indexed 0. So yeah, that's all there is to that. It's actually really simple. And the same thing, if I show you on these scenes again, I chose to attach my script to the canvas. Right here it is. This time there was no dragging and dropping because I have no public variables that I needed to attach any game objects to or any components to. And when I go to the button itself, I had to drag the canvas, the game object where the script is. I had to drag that here, then click this and choose the method that I'm concerned with. So it's in the class main menu return, right here, main menu return, and it is the method return home on click. So now this tells you that when the button is clicked, do this, I guess to say this is a method, do this method right here to load scene 0. And yeah, and I already showed you that it works. The other thing that I ran into today that was interesting, so originally I had an issue when I first made this. So I made the home, the main menu. I made the main menu, but the button worked on the main menu, and the main menu would take you to scene 1 or scene 2, whatever you typed in. But when you click the button to return back to the main menu, you couldn't click the button. The button was not clickable. It didn't look so. When you, I don't know that this will work so well right now, because see what happens when I hit play. It's kind of confused because I have a bunch of scenes loaded right here. So let's just make it go to scene 1. Okay, it took me to main. There we go. Okay, so now I'm at scene 1. You kind of tell how that button changes color slightly, signifying that it's a button. That wasn't happening. It wasn't responding at all to my mouse. And when you would click it, it would be like if I clicked here, nothing happens. But you'll see here, I click and something happens. So it wasn't working. And I couldn't figure out why it wasn't working. My code from here was exactly the way it is now. I didn't change anything. I tried doing the dot additive or addition or whatever that word is instead of single, and it worked, but it made this into a jumbled mess, as you saw when I hit play. How it's a jumbled mess right now. It has all these buttons that shouldn't be on here at the same time. It was doing that. And the problem was, for whatever reason, when I created this canvas on my home scene, it automatically created this event system. Or maybe the event system. This event system came from somewhere. I didn't create this game object. Somehow it was created from something else that I created. One of these other things I created, Unity automatically generated this game object event system. Well, down here, these other two scenes have an event system. I had to add that. It was not created automatically, and I didn't know that I needed it. And so somehow this game object right here has something to do with letting the button work. And to be honest, I don't know really hardly anything about it. I just know that it was needed, and it not being there was the reason that my button was not responding to my mouse. So I just made these new scenes. So what happens when I change from scenes? So originally I'm on this first scene, which I labeled blah blah blah, blah menu scene, and when I'm on this menu scene and I click the button, I believe it's correct. I'm fairly certain it's correct to say that it destroys every game object and everything on this scene and loads a new scene. And so this event system was getting destroyed. When I told it to load scene additive or addition, I think it's additive, load scene additive, when I did that, it was not destroying the first scene, which made it look like a jumbled mess, but it caused the button to work because the event system from here was active, and so it had an event system, and it was okay. It had all of the components that it needed of this game object. Whatever these are doing are apparently really important, and it had these, and so it could work. But Yeah, so when I have it load single like I do though, it destroys the first scene and to create the new scene. And so when I went to click the home button, say on this right here, which is like scene 1, when I click the home button, which you see right here, this is actually scene 2, but you see the return to main menu. When I would click that, I want it to, so that would be dealing with this event system, I want it to return back to this first scene. The problem was there was no event system here on this scene, so I could not click this button. That was the other interesting problem that I ran into today.